Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Today's feature issue video is going to be all about Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads. We got guitar legends, Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads. All right, you're here at KGTR. I'm Tony. If you haven't already, click subscribe, hit that notification bell. Any questions, comments, or feedback or requests, leave them below. We're going to get right to it. We're going to go through this magazine, this brilliant, all-time, all hail the Prince of Darkness collector's issue, page by page. All right, we're going to goof on it. We're going to comment on the photos, the articles. If there's any interviews in this magazine that we encounter that you want me to provide you in detail, I'd be happy to upload a 10-minute video where we'll go over the interview and we'll read it out loud so you know what the interview is about and so forth. But right now we're just going to go glance through these pages, see what was in this issue, look at the photos, what they were talking about, and so forth. All right, again, let's go ahead and begin. I'm Tony. You're here at KGTR. So let's begin with another page-by-page review of these old, awesome vintage guitar magazines. All right, let's begin. As you can see, the cover says Guitar Legends from Guitar World Presents, transcribed. So in this issue, we're going to have Ozzy Osbourne, Flying High Again, Over the Mountain, Mr. Crowley, Black Sabbath, The Wizard, and War Pigs. Look, featuring the legendary Randy Rhoads, the rise and the tragic death of a guitar god, how to play his greatest solos, rare photos, Black Sabbath, the music, the madness, the truth, new interviews, rare photos, Ozzy. Now this is a collector magazine. I happen to have two. One, I tore out the pages so that I can scan them for you. The other one I have intact because I couldn't scan with the spine. I don't want to mess it up. So I went out and grabbed another copy. You can find most of these issues or copies of magazines on eBay. Anywhere from $7.50 up to like $50, give or take. You can even buy a lot of magazines, LOT, where someone sells 5 magazines or more, 8 or more, whatever, a lot. And so just type in whatever magazine you're looking for on eBay, and I think pretty much you'll find a lot of them are there on eBay. Some you'll pay a pretty penny, others you'll get dirt cheap, depending on the condition. All right, so let's go ahead and open her up. Look, Weird Tales of Great Guitarists, Debauchery, and Dwarfs. Again, I'm not going to go into these articles or interviews. I'll be more than happy to create a backup video for you or upload another video, say 10 minutes, and I'll read the interview out loud so you know the Q&A of the interview. All right, let's go ahead and open her up. That's the front cover. And there we go, obviously, the Guitar Legends table of contents. So here we go. Diary of a Madman, To Hell and Back, Crazy Train, The Good, The Bad, and the Ozzy, Last Licks, Super Chunk, The Godfather of Metal. So I think this is going to cover probably Randy Rhoads, Bernie Torme, Brad Gillis, J.K. Lee, and then probably Zach Wilde. It'll probably cover these guitar players. All right, let's go ahead and open her up. Right, so Diary of a Madman. Here it is. Look, Guitar Legend pays tribute to the biggest rock legend of them all, Ozzy Osbourne. But before we begin our journey, let's hear from the great Ozzy himself as he walks down memory lane with the photographer, Ross Halfin. So this will be a great interview. If you want me to go over it, I'll be more than happy to in a separate video. Right now, we're going to go through these wonderful photos. Look at these rare photos right here. The 1978 tour with Van Halen. That must have been kick-ass. I was 12, but that must have been a great tour, a great concert to go to. And apparently, Van Halen blew Ozzy away, or Black Sabbath away. So look, that's me on the honeymoon. And here's little Ronnie. He called him Ronnie, the little midget dwarf, to make fun of Ronnie James Dio. That's what I heard. What else? The midget, he's dead. So there's that. All right. So let's open her up some more. Look at these rare photos. Look at these photos. The wife made me wear this. So this outfit, I believe Sharon made him wear it. Look, this is when he was in Drunken Stupor. There, look at the legends. Brian May, Tony Iommi, and the king himself. Look how young he was. 1978. Born in 1955. just a little kid here kicking ass. Look at Eddie Van Halen in this magazine. That's the connection with Ozzy Osbourne. He opened up, Van Halen opened up for Black Sabbath. What a tour that must have been. Look at this right here. Who's that? This picture, I can't read that little fine print. Oh, Zakk Wylde. So is that Zakk Wylde? Look at this rare photo back here. Look at the King right there. I have this guitar right there from Firefly. I have this guitar right there. Look. Isn't that cool? Look at, again, when I left Sabbath. So look at that right there. Boom, boom. All right, pick your sound. These are speakers. All right. To Hell and Back. The Incredible Saga of Ozzy Osbourne by Jeff Kitts. So again, this is probably going to be a nice, look at this awesome photo. Look, that'd be a great poster for your wall or your locker room right there. Look, isn't that a cool poster right there? Again, this magazine's chock full of photos, rare photos, interviews, and stories. Look, Ozzy Osbourne was up shit creek. The one-time lead singer of metal superstars Black Sabbath had been fired by that band in 1978. And now, just 1 year later, the man who gave the world such classics as War Pigs and Paranoid couldn't get even a nibble from their record companies. Ozzy looked washed up, but all that was about to change. From a little kid named Randy Rhoads, who basically took Ozzy Osbourne under his wing, and Randy Rhoads hired Ozzy But you know the story. Randy Rhoads made Ozzy Osbourne, so he put him on the map. Look at this. So obviously, you know, that was the magazine, you know, one page, but I had to tear it up. So here's the left side of that, and here's the right side. So sorry for that, but at least it scans cleaner this way. I didn't want to mess up the spine. So there you go. Look at a young Ozzy Osbourne there. Can you believe that? They fired him. They fired him. Look at Tony Iommi. He probably thought he had the last laugh. And then Randy Rhoads and Ozzy Osbourne teamed up and created a powerhouse of Ozzy Osbourne. All right, look at this. More Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath. Look at that. I have no real regrets except that I wasn't up to keeping Randy from getting on the plane. Isn't that sad? I wasn't up to keeping Randy from getting on that plane. Who would have thought that somebody would be playing, you know, stunts and circling around a bus? Who would have thought that? You don't. So that's sad. Same with Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. They hated flying or whatever, and they got on the plane. Oh, how sad. Look at Ozzy Osbourne in the studio. These rare photos. Look at that. Again, this is the left side of the magazine. Here's the right side of the magazine right here. Look, Jakey Lee. Isn't that an awesome guitar right here? Look, Jakey Lee. One of the few guitar players that can melt your face off without a whammy bar. Never used whammy bar. He didn't need a whammy bar. He made his own effects by bending the neck, bending the strings, doing all sorts of weird stuff. So Jakey Lee was in a class by himself. So how to succeed without really whamming. And there, look. So this guy tells you right here, if you want to know about this, if you want to know about this article, let's see if I can blow her up. Look. See? So if you want me to, when I blow it up, it shrinks the page, right? So what I can do is, I can come back to this in another video and read this out loud if you want me to. But I just want to give you a gist of it. All right, some more rare photos right here. Look at little Randy Rhoads right there. Look at Ronnie and overweight Ozzy Osbourne there before he got sober. Again, this is all talking about Ozzy and Black Sabbath. Look, my parents wanted me to be the next Van Cliburn, but I wanted to be the next Van Halen. So even then, they knew how great Van Halen was in 1978, 79, 80. So they knew. They knew. Look, this guy is the master. Brad Gillis, you can't say enough about this kid. I think he was 22, 23 years old at the time, maybe a little bit older. Long story short, he had some big, big shoes to fill. And Bernie Torme filled in for like a few shows. Then he bowed out. They brought in Brad Gillis, and he nailed it. He had his own take on the Randy solos. He kept Randy's solos intact, but then he added his little, look right here, the Floyd Rose. He did the Floyd Rose better, but differently than Eddie Van Halen. Obviously, he learned it from Eddie, the dive bombs. But he made this tremolo float, and he just started doing all these incredible whammy bar tricks. Then soon everybody copied Brad Gillis. But long story short, go on YouTube. You can find Ozzy Osbourne live at Irvine Meadows. See the entire show with Brad Gillis. He did, I'm sure he did Randy Rhoads proud. He nailed it. So I can't say enough about Brad Gillis. And because of Brad Gillis, I got into Randy Rhoads even more because I wanted to hear the differences. I got exposed to Flying High Again and Crazy Train. I didn't have the records. I bought those 2 records after I saw this video on MTV. Then I went out and bought the Randy Rhoads records. And I was comparing Randy to Brad Gillis. But Brad Gillis tore it up. And this is a Fernandez guitar. I think it was Fernandez or Fender. I think he went to Fernandez. But who knows? He still has his guitar. It's all beat up. But look at that. We told the audience that Ozzy had food poisoning and that we'd taken him to the hospital. But he really just passed out in the back of the bus. So they must have had to cancel a photo shoot, autograph signing, or maybe a show if he was too drunk. But look, Ozzy Osbourne kicked ass. I still think this vest right here belonged to Randy Rhoads. Because Randy Rhoads had like a purple vest. And I think this is Randy. So I could be wrong. And then look at Jake Lee. Jake Lee filled in the shoes when Brad Gillis left to when he helped form Night Ranger, and they're about to get signed. So he left Ozzy right when Night Ranger was about to take off. And Night Ranger did pretty good, and they're still playing 40 years later. And so, but look at Jake Lee. He filled in nicely for Randy and for Brad Gillis. So Jake Lee held his own also. And Zakk Wylde, again, more big shoes to fill. He had his own sound, his own take to the songs, and has his own following. And he made Ozzy even better. Every guitar player made Ozzy a better singer-songwriter. All right, more rare photos here. Look, it is said a hero is not born, but made. Look at Randy Rhoads, one chop at a time. You got Slash. I don't know who this is, but here's Randy. Look at Randy. Guitar Hero, the Guitar Hero Sculpture Series. That's pretty cool. This iconic Jackson right there. Look at this bill. Look. Before Van Halen was signed, right? Before they were signed, Van Halen and Quiet Riot, Saturday, April 23rd, Glendale College. Can you imagine you're Randy Rhoads opening up for Van Halen? Eddie's checking you out, and after your set, you're checking out Van Halen's set, and then you got fans out in the audience probably comparing you to, oh, Randy's better, no, Eddie's better, oh, Eddie blows Randy away. And you know, people talk, people have their favorites, but that right there, can you imagine if there was a video or the audio of this show? Is there any video or audio of this show, Quiet Riot opening up for Van Halen? Because back then, oh, that would have been awesome. Look at that. Crazy Train. His rise was a meteoric, swift, brilliant, and all too brief. In March 2002, on the 20th anniversary of his death, Guitar World paid tribute to Randy Rhoads, the groundbreaking guitarist who helped Ozzy Osbourne get his career on track. So, poor guy. Look, he made 2 albums in 77, 78, or 78 and 79 with Quiet Riot, with Kevin DuBrow. They went nowhere. The records did nothing in Japan. I think they were released in Japan. And then there he is playing the clubs, trying to get signed, right? But their music kind of sucked. But Randy was bringing him in. Then Ozzy heard of Randy, called him in, signed him up, pulled Randy away from Quiet Riot. And Quiet Riot had to go find another guitar player. They grabbed the guitar player from Snow, Carlos Cavazzo's band. Again, back playing the clubs back in 77, 78, 79. And then they went on to play and record Metal Health, which blew up in 1983. So this is Crazy Train. So everyone's intertwined. Carlos Cavazzo with Kevin DuBrow and Randy Rhoads. Eddie Van Halen with Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath in 1978. They're all intertwined with each other. And then not to mention here, George Lynch with the Boys, Nick Sider, playing with Randy Rhoads, playing with Eddie Van Halen. Oh, checking each other out. Oh, That must have been awesome. Look at Randy's hair back in 1979. Look at Randy's famous Les Paul and his famous white, looks like a white cabinet Marshall. Again, want me to read this to you? I'll be more than happy to in a later video. Look, the age of innocence. The late great Randy Rhoads wasn't born a heavy metal guitar legend. In this exclusive interview, Kelly Carney, Randy's childhood friend and fellow member of the Quiet Riot, recalls the early years of the guitarist who became Ozzy's boy wonder by Alan DiPerna. So his childhood friend is going to talk about Randy Rhoads. Look at the small print. But if you want me to read it to you, I'll be more than happy to make a video, and I'll be happy to read these interviews for you. Right? Look at these rare photos. Look at this. Randy confided in me that he had aspirations to do something else other than play with Ozzy. Just before his death, I know he wasn't the happiest camper out there. Tommy Aldridge. So, excuse me. It's safe to say that after the tour of Diary of a Madman, which was cut short because he passed away, more than likely he probably would have done one more studio album and then quit. That's my take. I don't think he was going to quit after the tour, but who knows? But I think he probably had one more album left in him to say, okay, Ozzy, I'll stick around for one more album, maybe one more tour, but I'm done. So possibly around 82, 83, or 83, 84, he would have bailed Ozzy Osbourne and either gone back to teaching, gone back to school, or did something totally different as a solo artist. But he was so talented, so young, and there he was. Remember, 1982, you had Diver Down was 83. So 82, you had Mean Streets. So 1982, Eddie Van Halen was doing Mean Streets, that tour. And poor little Randy passed away in 82, Diary of a Madman. All right, more of the interview with the childhood friend. Look, in junior high, Randy and I were harassed, beaten up, constantly threatened, and constantly chased home. Because they were probably, skinny, frail kids, right? Randy was very petite. Probably like, 5'7", 5'6", maybe? But petite. So he was real frail. Look at Randy Rhoads. Look at that famous hair. Here's a black Les Paul. I don't remember him playing a black Les Paul. This could be for the photo shoots, but there he is. After spending an hour on stage playing songs that he co-wrote with Ozzy, Randy just felt uncomfortable doing Black Sabbath songs, which were not really his style, by Rudy Sarzo. So you can tell that these guys were either going to come to blows verbally. You know what, I quit, because Randy wants to do his own thing, which he was. Like, he didn't want to do covers of Black Sabbath. So, but he loved playing guitar for the fans, and he loved creating and writing music. So who knows what would have happened when he would have, hands down, left Ozzy Osbourne. And I think he probably would have left right after Diary of a Madman, or eked out one more record and then quit. That's my take. Oh, let's see. Every single person who worked for me went to the hospital that night with broken arms. With broken arms? Concussions. So, it's hard for me to read. I have my little bifocals without me bumping into my microphone. But there you go. Again, I can read that for you. Look at this beautiful. Look at this. This is the same stage setup of the Blizzard of Diary of a Madman tour. That right here would be Brad Gillis. See my cursor? Now picture Brad Gillis right here. So, sadly, Brad Gillis had to finish the tour because he couldn't. And you would think most bands would be like, you know what? We can't go on anymore. We'll come back very soon. But he basically looked for another guitar player. I got a tour. So he picked up. And then there's Rudy, there's Tommy Aldridge, there's Ozzy, there's the late, great Randy Rhoads. Look at this. I wish there was more live footage of him. Pro shot. All right. Again, more from the article. Look, there's that iconic guitar right here. Some people said it was white, and then over age it turned cream yellow. Others say the guitar comes cream yellow. So if it was white, obviously it ages like this. But if it was cream yellow, that's a beautiful color. I have an exact replica of this by Firefly. It's a beautiful guitar. I'll break it out one day. But this guitar right here, just like the black and white striped, was Eddie's trademark. This guitar and the black and white polka dot flying V was his signature trademark. Look at Ozzy Osbourne. Randy and I had a chat one day, and he said, "The band is just a lot of geeks. You drink too much." So already you can tell Randy was unhappy with just going through the motions. Again, there he is right there. Boom. 1982, Chicago. So remember, he died in 1982. One of the last great photos of Randy live. And this could have been January, February, March when he passed away, or when this photo was taken. Sharon was screaming, "How could you let that baby get on that airplane?" Tommy Aldridge. That baby, yeah, he was a little kid. Look at this. I'm sure this photo was taken right before the airplane too. He was a kid. Bright future. But who knew that the stupid pilot would be doing zipping around the bus? You know, and then was he on cocaine or something like that? Or high? Who knows? Right. The good, the bad. Excuse me. The Ozzy. Tommy, Randy Rhoads, Jakey Lee, and Zakk Wylde. For more than 20 years, Ozzy Osbourne has seen guitarists come and go. What separates the men from the boys, the legendary rock man spills the beans. That's one of my videos over there, finishing editing. So again, I'm punching content with you. So that little noise, excuse it. I got two computers here. One I'm working on with you, and the other one's over here, doing its magic, editing and processing. So sorry for that little noise. All right. Again, another article. You want me to break out this article for you? I'll be more than happy to share that with you. All right, we got the guitar players of Ozzy Osbourne. We got Tony Iommi. We got Randy Rhoads. We got Jakey Lee. We got John. Who's this? Oh, Zakk Wylde. Sorry, we have Zakk Wylde. But we also have Bernie Tomei. And then we also have, for a brief stint, George Lynch, who did sound checks with the band, but never got to really play with the band. So, and apparently Ozzy did George Lynch dirty. So, right, look, no rest for the wicked. If only half the rumors about him are true, Ozzy Osbourne should be dead. Yet after 21 years of twisted public behavior, the man who brought you songs like Paranoid, Bark at the Moon, Children of the Grave, looks incredibly healthy now and ready to take on the world. Ozzy recently celebrated more than 20 years in the business by polishing off a live greatest hits EP, Just Say Ozzy, and is currently at work on his next studio metal masterpiece. Again, more pictures with Randy Rhoads right there. If you want to know about this article, let me know. I'll be happy to read this article. People get a thrill out of being around evil. There's Tony Iommi with his beautiful custom SG. Look at this iconic shot. Look at this. That's Ozzy, right? One of the early shots of Ozzy with the, it looks like Ozzy, right? There's Rudy Sarzo, I think. But look, there's that famous Les Paul right there with his little bends. And then there's Jakey Lee. Ozzy Osbourne just got a haircut. Randy was very instrumental in bringing me out of me. So this was great. There's Jakey Lee there. Jake was fine for the first 3 days. Then he wanted to take over. So Jakey Lee had a lot of drive. He was hungry. Jakey Lee was hungry for success. I'm sure he was tired of playing clubs, not getting anywhere. He gets to jump and fill into Randy Rhoads' old shoes, tour the world. So he's going to leave his mark, and Jakey Lee left his mark. One of the greatest guitar players of 80s metal, by far. And then, you know, Ozzy's still Ozzy. So he just pretty much plucks the guitars and plugs them in. They learn the material, and on the way they go. Zakk Wylde was hungry also, and he did his own thing. He sounded differently than Randy, Brad, and Jakey Lee. Each guitar player that played for Ozzy, they were good and unique in their own way. I can't say one bad thing about any guitar player that's played for Ozzy. They're all good, talented, and they can melt your face off on the guitar. That's just a fact. Look at this. lasting licks. So this is obviously the way it should have been. So I apologize. Look, remember the magazine should be whole, but because of the spine, I had to tear out the page. So this is what you get. This is what the would look like. So look at this guitar right here. This is a Sandoval 1979 Flying V, created by Sandoval, which now Firefly has recreated for the low price of $209. So for $209, you can get an exact replica of this guitar from Firefly at guitarsgarden.com. Not sponsored, but if you want a copy of this guitar, you can get this guitar for as low as $209. You can also find this guitar on eBay for around $300 on eBay from Firefly. Look at this, the early rendition of the Jackson, his work with Jackson right here. Look at that guitar, and then look at this other iconic guitar right here. Look. Oh, also Firefly made an exact replica of this guitar, also for around $249, $259. Firefly, and then here's that famous cream yellow Gibson Les Paul that was white, but then turned cream yellow. Guitar World pays tribute to Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne's colossal sideman, with an exact transcript of a guitar clinic he conducted shortly before his untimely death. So, in this magazine, I'm just going to go through the pages, obviously page by page, but if you want me to just make a little short video of this guitar clinic manuscript, I'll be more than happy to share it with you, and you can take screen grabs, right? So this is it right here. This is his guitar clinic that he gave. His little haircut, his little guitar. He's talking about it right there. Look, Rhoads, Randy Rhoads. So if you want me to go into detail, I'll be more than happy to. Again, here's the manuscript. Look, Rhoads of his guitar clinic. So this is all verbatim, his words, right before he died. So I'll be more than happy to share that with you if you want. But you have to let me know though. Again, this is the manuscript of his clinic right before he died. So look at this, in his own words. Look at this, he's still talking and talking. So wouldn't you like to know what he's saying? Let's get a little taste right here, look. There you go. Again, look at this manuscript. Tony, re-upload the manuscript. Read the manuscript to me, Tony, and I'll make a video of the manuscript. Look, Zakk Wylde, look, plays GH strings. Remember the strings we had? D. Markley, we had Dario, we had Gibson grabbers, we had Fender. Now we have GHS strings, we have Ernie Ball. What guitars were you using back in 1982-83? Even though this is a commemorative issue, GH strings. They said George Lynch used GH strings, but I use Ernie Ball or Dario. I never played D. Markley. I never played with Gibson grabbers or Fender. So everyone to their own. Look, Super Chunk. All right, now this obviously again, that's the left page of that one right there. So there you go, boom, and boom. So look at this guitar. Look, it's all beat up. Vintage. What's that called? Confederate. The Confederate flag on his Les Paul right there. That was like his trademark right there. His you identified Zakk Wylde with that guitar, and then Spiral. All right, again, more of the transcript right there. Look, here's some Zakk Wylde talking. You want me to talk about Zakk Wylde? I'll be more than happy to. Again, I will just read it to you aloud. Godfather of metal, Tony Iommi. Now, back in the 70s, early 70s, while you had bubblegum pop, bubblegum rock, the Beatles broken up, you had bands in England playing the flatted fifth, heavy distortion. Look at this guitar. Tony Iommi was very sinister, very creative on the guitar. And like what most people say, when you heard Black Sabbath for the first time, it was loud and heavy, and the bass, it was, wow, what is this? And Tony Iommi was the godfather of metal. I agree with that. Of course, there's Jimi Hendrix, but that wasn't metal, that was like hard rock. But look at this. Tony Iommi, those riffs, every one of his songs has classic, memorable riffs. So look, heavy metal overlord And Riffmaster shows us how he creates some of the metal's most memorable moments by Nick Balcott. Still around, still writing, still creating. Again, Paranoid, Iron Man, Children of the Sea, Spiral Architect, memorable riffs. Iommi's techniques and trills, fretboard exploits, and this will tell you how he does it. Flying High again. All guitars are tuned down 1/2 step. So there's Randy Rhoads, look at that. Flying High again right there. Again, all this sheet music you can find online. Just Google it. You can find it. And naturally go to YouTube. I'm sure you got thousands of guitar players on YouTube giving lessons on Flying High again or playing covers of Flying High again. Just look it up. Over the Mountain. I first heard of Over the Mountain when I saw Brad Gillis play it on MTV live at Irvine Meadows. Again, the only songs I heard of Randy on album or tape or on the radio was Flying High Again and Crazy Train. I never heard of any other Randy Rhoads tracks, but those two I heard on the radio. So I knew of Randy Rhoads, I just never was exposed to Randy Rhoads. But after he died, and MTV played Brad Gillis, Ozzy Osbourne live at Irvine Meadows, I was exposed to all of Randy's music. I love what Brad Gillis did, so now I had to go back and hear how Randy Rhoads played it. And I was like totally impressed. And I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan, sadly, after he died. At the same time, I discovered George Lynch when he did live Paris is Burning. And that's another video for another story. But yeah, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, George Lynch, always intertwined, always together like that. Boom. Because in the mid-late 70s, there they were playing the same clubs. George saw Eddie, Eddie saw George saw Randy and Eddie saw George and Rhoads. They were around back in 76, 77, 78. They saw the competition. They know what was up. I love it. And sadly, Eddie's gone in 2020. Randy's gone in 1982. And you still got the master, the king, George Lynch. He's still around. Look, Mr. Crowley. All the sheet music right there from Mr. Crowley. And the solos, and the chord progressions, and the transitions, and the key changes right there, look. But again, you can find all this online. Look, The Wizard by Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi, look. Again, more sheet music. Okay, we're almost done with this issue. But look at this brilliant sheet music right here. So again, you want this, just go ahead and Google it. You'll be able to find it. Now here's a heavier, chunkier Zakk Wylde right here. The guy was huge, but he used to be tall and lanky. Now he's all fat, long beard, long hair. But he can still smoke you and still blow you away on the guitar. Look, Zakk Wylde hits a bullseye with EMG. So he has his own iconic now signature guitars and pickups. So good for him. Look at this. Zakk Wylde, Marshall. Randy Rhoads, Marshall. Shred. You supply the inspiration, we'll supply the gear. What they're saying is, Randy played Marshall, Zakk played Marshall. Two different guitar players, two different sets of tones, but they both sound great with a Marshall. Alright, and that was it. So let's go back to the front cover. That was the Guitar Legends, the legendary Randy Rhoads, and Ozzy Osbourne magazine issue. Let me know what you thought about this issue. Do you have this issue? How much of a fan are you of Ozzy versus Ozzy and Black Sabbath? Or were you a fan of Ozzy because of Randy Rhoads? I remember hearing, obviously, Ozzy Osbourne in the early mid-70s as a kid. I discovered Black Sabbath before I discovered Kiss. And so that's why I love Black Sabbath. And I love Kiss. I also love the Beatles. And I love the Monkees and the Bee Gees. And I love all that stuff. And then I discovered Van Halen. And every kid has their favorite bands they grew up with. That's why they gravitate to their youth. I discovered Randy through Brad Gillis. Even though I heard of Flying High Again and Crazy Train on the radio, I'm like, oh wow, this guy's good. He's really good. But that was it. I only heard 2 songs. But it took his death, sadly, for me to buy his records, because I saw what Brad Gillis was doing. And so I owe it to Brad Gillis. Why I like Brad Gillis so much and why I like Randy so much. And at the same time, Jordan Lynch was coming up and Eddie Van Halen was there. So just like Jordan Lynch says, he was there at the beginning of Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Jimi Hendrix. So think about it. Jordan Lynch was born in 54. Eddie Van Halen in 55. Randy Rhoads in 56. Jordan Lynch has stated several times, dozens of times, he was around, lucky enough to be around at the inception of Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. Those 4 guitar players, and possibly Tony Iommi. Those 4 or 5 guitar players, Jordan Lynch and his friends and that generation put on their records or 8-track tapes and got the jam along with those guitar players. Buy those new albums as they came out. And just be exposed to those 4 great guitar players. Boom, boom, boom. And then us growing up as kids, we were exposed to Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Michael Shankar, Tony Iommi, George Lynch, Jakey Lee, Warren DeMartini, then Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen. So the generations have their guys they gravitated to, they grew up listening to. Just like the early guys. And then the earlier people, they gravitated to B.B. King, Wes Montgomery, Chuck Berry, all these other earlier guitar players. So it just goes in cycles. But this is a great issue. Again, if you want this issue, I totally suggest just go on eBay and just type it in, and then you'll see there's a lot of rare stuff on eBay and a lot of guitar magazines and other magazines on eBay. So just go to eBay if you have to have this magazine. I'm sure someone out there may have it out there. But let me know what you thought. I love this issue, and I'm glad I can bring it to you. Stay tuned for more videos. You're here at KGTR. Thank you for watching and joining me. Again, don't forget to click subscribe, hit the notification bell. Any questions, comments, or feedback, or requests, leave them below. Yes, more guitar tones are coming. More vintage magazine reviews are coming. More guitar reviews are coming, and more surprises. And all right, that's it. I'll see you all real soon in the next video. Bye.